yeah, it's already stuck. You know, the thing is, I've longed to make this review for quite a while, but procrastination. Ooh. This is the Octatrack Mark II, and I bought the Octatrack about a year back, and it's gone in and out of my closet. But I've really tried to find a space for the Octatrack in my music and my sound creations. So what is the Octatrack? The Octatrack is an 8-track dynamic performance sampler. That means that the main focus is audio sampling and audio mangling. But it's really an obnoxious DAW inside a hardware case. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that notification button so that you don't miss out on any of my upcoming videos. And please write me in the comments if you have any questions on the Octatrack or any of my previous videos. So in this video you're going to learn about the core features of the Octatrack Mark II. We'll talk about the pros and cons, what I like and what I don't like about the Octatrack Mark II. And we'll also do some comparison with similar samplers like the Maschine Plus. Let's take the tour! Right, so the Octatrack Mark II at the core is a performance sampler. That means that you sample things into the Octatrack or you put files on the Octatrack compact flash card. And you load up these samples on the 8 audio tracks and you mangle these samples and create compositions with the onboard sequencer. It's an extremely powerful yet extremely hard device to learn. Extremely hard instrument to learn. And I mean, I have a ton of these different sampler synths in the studio here, but nothing's like the Octatrack and nothing's been as hard to learn as the Octatrack. So at the core you have 8 different audio tracks, T1 to T8, and on each of these audio track you load up a machine, a playback machine. And there's a static machine, there's a flex machine, through machine, neighbor and pickup machine. And all these machines have different purpose. I highly recommend that you have the manual or the PDF at hand when you start exploring the Octatrack Mark II, because there's tons of like double taps on the buttons to bring up different screens, and there's the function key plus some buttons to achieve other alternative button presses, button functionalities. All the audio tracks on the Octatrack have access to 5 main pages. We have the source page, the amplifier page, the LFO page, which contains 3 LFOs, and that's quite massive. You often only give access to 1 or 2 LFOs in other synths and samplers. So we have 3 LFOs, and one of these LFOs can also be a custom designed LFO. So we can do something like this and create our very own LFO. Again, remember, you have 3 dedicated LFOs per track. And on each track you also have 2 effects. The first one by default is a filter and the second one is a delay. But you can also change this by double tapping, double tap, bad body double. And if you double tap you can select the filter, equalizer, DJ equalizer, phaser, flanger, chorus, spatializer, some kind of a stereo effect, com filter, compressors and lo-fi effect. If you want to gain access to a delay and reverbs, you have to access them via FX2. There you have the delay and you have a plate reverb, spring reverb and a dark reverb. Coffee. Now that's it for the audio tracks, but the Octatrack also has 8 MIDI tracks simultaneously as the 8 audio tracks. To gain access to the MIDI tracks, press the MIDI button and all these tracks turns into MIDI tracks instead. And on every MIDI track you can add up to 4 notes, so it's polyphonic tracks. And the pages here show you some alternative stuff like MIDI arpeggiator, a MIDI LFO, MIDI controller change values on 2 pages. So the Octatrack is definitely also an extremely powerful MIDI sequencer. Now let's briefly talk about the I/O, the inputs and outputs of the Octatrack. It has input AB and input CD, that's 4 additional tele inputs. And it also has a Q output, so you can basically send to a stereo effect, maybe something like the Zoom MS-70 CDR, and return the send return into any of the inputs here. And then you can activate Q send on separate tracks. And when tracks are flashing like this, it means that they are sending to the Q output. And that's only scraping the surface of what you can do with the Octatrack. Now the number one powerful feature we need to talk about when speaking of the Octatrack Mark II, it's definitely about this fader. And the fader can basically fade between two different scenes, and a single scene can have totally different parameter changes on all the different tracks on the Octatrack. So you can do some really far out there transitions between fader point A and fader point B. On this particular project we have scene A attached to scene 1 and the fader point B set to scene 9. So these with the highlighted white background are the parameters that's changing in this scene. So let's do a quick transition. A super quick like transition and morphing and blending of different parameter changes super quickly, and that's really one of the strengths of the Octatrack, that it's such a good performing instrument. Right, so up to now we talked about all the fine features of the Octatrack Mark II and how good it is and how many LFOs you have. But what about the downsides? Some of the downsides I can think of is definitely browsing the file system. It's a little bit odd navigating all these menus with the back and forth arrows and trying to figure out where you are in the hierarchy. I mean, all this double tapping of buttons to reach certain menus and all the setups that you have to do to achieve certain tasks in the Octatrack make it a little bit tedious to work with, especially if you're used to working in something like Ableton Live or some other DAW. That said, it's still a wonderful performing device as soon as you have all that stuff set up for you and all the scenes set up and stuff. Another extremely annoying thing about the Octatrack, which I haven't experienced yet on the Digitact, is the trigger buttons, because they sometimes get stuck. Yeah, it's already stuck. But apparently you can remove the buttons and clean them and they should work fine again, but I haven't really gone into that procedure yet. Now, for the amount that you pay for the Octatrack, you definitely would have expected Elektron to give you decent buttons that don't get stuck. And it's also an issue that the buttons on the Octatrack has a really loud clicky sound to them compared to something like the sweet little Op1 Field, which has extremely nice sweet soft buttons. And the Maschine Plus also has very soft buttons which doesn't sound too clicky like the Octatrack. Now, another obvious downside, you can't use Octatrack Mark II with Overbridge. Overbridge basically turns your Elektron gear into an audio interface, and you can stream all the tracks like from the Syntact and from the Digitact directly into your DAW through the USB interface. I would have loved to see Overbridge compatibility with the Octatrack Mark II, but apparently it's not gonna happen. Maybe in a future version of the Octatrack. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Overbridge discompatibility. Another downside I came to think of is battery power. It would have been great to have a battery-powered unit like the Op1 Field, because it's such a small form factor anyway on the Octatrack Mark II, so it would have been great to bring the Octatrack to the beach, but you can always hook up the AC adapter to maybe a battery power bank, but again that requires some extra fiddling and extra gear. But apparently I read on some forum that you can actually mount a battery inside or at the sides of the Octatrack to get it battery powered. Let's quickly compare the Octatrack Mark II with something like the Maschine Plus. The Maschine Plus is definitely a much easier instrument to get started with. The Octatrack requires much more setup. The Maschine Plus you can instantly load up groups and load up sounds and start working with it. It also loads native instrument plugins, which the Octatrack doesn't come near. The Octatrack can obviously do much more sample mangling, but I feel that the immediacy and hands-on and tactile experience of using the Maschine Plus, it's much more to my liking and my personal preference of working. It's a lot more like tedious tasks and tedious work to prepare your projects and get music going on the Octatrack. But that said, that's my personal preference, and I'm still gonna keep the Octatrack because there's stuff in here that I can't do on the Maschine Plus, and I love the sample mangling aspect of the Octatrack. Please let me know in the comments what you think about these two devices. The Maschine Plus doesn't have the same I/O as you have on the Octatrack, but again, the Maschine Plus can be your audio interface, and it can also act as your machine controller for your DAW and as a DAW controller. The Maschine Plus also has much better sounding effects. That said, you can get really nice lo-fi sounds and lo-fi effects on the Octatrack if that is your thing. My personal preference between these two as a songwriting device is definitely the Maschine Plus, because it's much easier to work with, it's much quicker to work with. But that said, beat mangling on the Octatrack is superior. Right, so that concludes my review of the Octatrack. Please let me know in the comments what you think about my video, and if you have any suggestions and power tips for using the Octatrack. Thanks for watching today. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit the like and that notification bell so that you get notice as soon as I drop new videos. My name is Matthias. See you in the next video. Bye!